For further discussion, we're bringing in Mike Sarraille, retired U.S. Navy SEAL and Chief Talent Officer of Overwatch Mission Critical. He's also the host of Fox Nation's The Unsung of Arlington. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, it's a very difficult day for Americans, the weight of remembering 9/11, and just one day after the fatal shooting of 31-year-old father, husband, Charlie Kirk. How should we view these events, and what does it say about the threats that America is facing today?
They may be hard to separate moving forward. I remember back to 9/11, I was on active duty in the Marine Corps. We didn't realize how long the global war on terror would be. It took the lives of 3,000 Americans, to which I send my condolences still to those families that lost loved ones. And the thing I remember about 9/11, and you may as well, is that regardless if you were a Republican or a Democrat, I do remember the unification of the nation. We were all Americans those months that followed, the days and months that followed, and we were unified. And we are a far way from those days. We are a house divided. And the rhetoric, and guys, let's not mince words here, the rhetoric from the left has led to predominant political violence inflicted by them upon the right. But, the fact that the threat is no longer external, it's internal, is disgusting. And I think that's why so many people are devastated. They're shocked, and rightfully so, angry in a lot of ways that you can no longer engage in dialogue, because if you have opposing views, you now become a target.
And the fact that we're even discussing this, whether we'll feel safe in public expressing our thoughts, just goes to say, I mean, President Trump said today is a dark day for America. What I'm worried about is, how do we prevent this from happening again? And how do we not normalize this?
Yeah, that's the great question. And I'm going to be honest, Don. I don't have all the answers. I don't even know how to begin this, because usually you start with accountability. And guys, if we look at the past few incidents of political violence or political terrorism, they've been inflicted by the left. The Democrats that have had rhetoric calling those on the right that have opposing views fascists and Nazis, and firing up their base, who then go and conduct attacks on political opponents. There has to be accountability. And I've seen a lot of Democrats come out with what I say, tone deaf, condolences for the death of Charlie. It's not enough. It's not enough. And we've got to hold the parties that are firing up these bases, or promoting attacks on ICE agents or law enforcement, or promoting violent protests. The Justice Department has to go after them. They've got to hold them accountable, and we've got to tone down the rhetoric. And that's both sides. But for whatever reason, the rhetoric on the left is firing up their base to conduct attacks.
Can you talk to us about how you feel about America's future? Because this event comes on the heels of the stabbing, the horrific stabbing of the Ukrainian refugee. And then before that, there was the Catholic school shooting. And then many more instances before that. So how are you feeling about the future of America? And how do we make sure it's a positive one?
The quick answer is not great. Don, you said it. People don't feel safe. I was in the profession of arms for 20 years, and I no longer feel safe. Not for my personal safety, but the safety of my family, because I can't be all places at once. My wife and I have an 11-month-old daughter, and we're already having the discussions of, do we send her to school or do we homeschool her? That we don't feel safe to send her 2 blocks, and when she's 4 or 5 or 6, 2 blocks on her bike to go to the playground. The environment I grew up in is vastly different than the environment now. And it's because people no longer enforce the laws. Social deviancy is now promoted on social media. We need district attorneys. We need, legal professionals, judges, who are going to hold our criminals accountable to the farthest extent of the law. If somebody is a repeat violator of violent assaults, you lock them up. I do believe in second chances, but you also have to take the masses into account, and you've got to protect the people. What happened in Charlotte was devastating. Just the brutality of it. And it's funny, that same instance, Daniel Penny was persecuted for being a good Samaritan and taking action. He didn't intend to kill that individual on the subway in New York, but the left wanted to hang him from the highest rafters in New York, as an example. And so I don't even feel safe to be a good Samaritan and intervene when I see crime happening, because I fear that lawfare will be waged against me for doing what for what most people would consider being the right thing. So the law no longer works in our favor. It no longer protects us. And defund the police was massively devastating to this nation.
Mike, how did we get here? You mentioned earlier about rhetoric, but it's not just that. When the death of an innocent American, a Christian, a father, a husband, as I mentioned earlier, mocked on social media.
Don, I no longer pretend to understand how other people think, but to to uh, to hit a laughing face emoji or to put a video, celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, that's just a total lack of empathy and decency. And I continue to watch the videos of Charlie Kirk, who was a man of conviction, who was a man of faith, that stood for what he believed in, and you have to respect that. Um, and he never raised a fist against anyone, but that the video of his daughter running to him when he was on the set of Fox and Friends not too long ago. His young daughter and his young son are one day going to have to watch that brutal video, and they no longer they will have memories of their fathers through stories, not experiential time spent with their father being raised by him and his wife. And I go back to a poem by a famous Shawnee war chief. His name was Tecumseh. In it, he said, "Respect others and their views, and stand your ground and demand that they respect yours." At no point did he say inflict violence on those with opposing views. And how we return back to dialogue in a constructive, healthy way, that's the question we all need to answer. But at the end of the day, Charlie did predict this. He said, when dialogue stops, violence fills that vacuum. And history shows us time and time again. And for whatever reason, our generation can't learn this.
I mean, there's just no words to describe what happened, and I want to try to end, see if we can, on a positive note. Maybe there's something that we can learn from 9/11 and from the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk to try to, help us unite the U.S. and become stronger and steadfast as we look to the future.
I'd love to be positive. I really would. It's just we have such opposing viewpoints now on things between the left and the right, and I don't know if that can be healed. I'd love to say cooler heads need to prevail, and great leaders lower the temperature in chaotic situations. I get it, but people rightfully so are angry. They're angry on the right. They cancel culture even close their voice. So I'd love to have a great positive answer for you, but even right now, the way I'm feeling, which has been gut wrenching, I don't have one.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Don.